Hello, welcome back to the old shop where, as you can see, I've got a lovely fire going. It's evening time. It's been quite a grey and wet day today, so I haven't ventured very far apart from up the gardens of the compost heap. It's about as far as I've been, I think, but it is really nice in here, so that's been quite a nice place to do some work. I've been doing some writing and some editing of this video, in fact. So I wanted to explain why I thought now would be a good time to put another video out. I suppose it's always a good time if I can do it, but there's lots going on at this time of year. I always feel, because as you'll know if you've followed the old shop for a while, I do like to mark the old dates of the festivals as well as the new ones. So when the calendar changed in 1752, we lost 13 days, well 11 days then, but time has crept even further now, so we're 13 days adrift of how the season would have been for people before 1752. So when you've got something, for example, like All Hallows Eve, it would have felt the season around in the conditions and the temperatures and everything would have felt as it does for us now about the 13th of November. So everything, it's just a little bit of difference. I know doesn't sound very much, but a couple of weeks difference in the seasons actually a lot. And then, as well as that being the case, I think it also gives us a whole tide to work through. So we're in the middle of Hallowtide now, between new Halloween and old Halloween, if you want to call the festivals that, or Samhain. And that just, it's a whole season, so we can kind of savour it and sink into it and feel it. And as well, it gives us a chance, if we've missed doing something we intended to do, like making soul cakes for All Souls Day, you can do it for All Souls Day if you wish. So, which I shall hopefully be doing. Because I did miss doing it. So that's one thing. And it's also Martinmas. Well, it's 11th of November is Martinmas, which is another old festival. I'm not really going to be talking very much about that, but just to note that it was the time in the olden days when the animals that couldn't make it through the winter would be killed and butchered. And it's interesting, I suppose, as it coincides with this sacrificial time. We mark the people who fell in the world wars at the same time, which I think is very poignant. I haven't specifically talked about Martinmas in this video. I did do a video, I can't remember, maybe a couple of years ago, when I told one of my favourite stories relating to St Martin, or at least a land called St Martin's Land that the Green Children of Woolpit said that they'd come from. I don't know whether you know the folk tale, but I do tell it in a video a couple of years ago at this time, and I'll try and link that in at the bottom. I will link it in somewhere in the description. But the main thing I wanted to sort of tell you was that I have co-written a folk song, which is not something I ever imagined that I'd be able to do at all, but it just seemed to sort of happen. And it's really in honour of the peasants. In the last stand of the Peasants Revolt was the Battle of North Walsham. North Walsham is actually one of my nearest towns here, so it feels like a very local story. Lots of people who live here don't know about it at all, don't seem to know about it. They don't know about the Peasants Revolt of 1381, and they certainly don't know that this really important battle, and when the peasants were unfortunately they were defeated and basically massacred, just took place on a field just outside North Walsham. So this song is about that. It's called The Ballad of Geoffrey Lister, and Geoffrey Lister was a dyer from Felmingham, which is close by, and there was a big weaving industry here. So you can imagine how you would have dyers working with natural dyes and obviously other trades. And he led the peasants, and all they had to defend themselves were the tools of their trade. So if there were agricultural labourers, they would have their agricultural tools, maybe scythes, pitchforks. They didn't have any grand swords or bows and arrows or anything, unlike the army that marched out from Norwich to try to quell the rebellion. Basically, the peasants were standing up for their rights. The peasants were, after the Black Death, there were fewer of them, and they would have hoped they'd have better conditions. they could ask for better conditions, but instead a poll tax was levied against them, and they were not allowed to travel from village to village to try to get better wages. So this is what caused, well, I mean, I'm sure there were other factors, but this was among the causes of the Peasants Revolt. So I have been to the places of battlefield. I made a little video which to illustrate, like a music video, which to illustrate the song, if that's the right expression. So I really hope you'll enjoy it. I really hope you'll enjoy it. As I say, it's called the Ballad of Geoffrey Lister. So needless to say, this is the first time it's ever been aired online, so it's like its premiere. Although the first time it was actually sung out in the wild, we went to the field, the battlefield, and just sort of honoured the peasants basically, and burnt a little bit of incense and then just offered them the song. So that felt really special. And then the first time it was actually performed to an audience, or a kind of, you know, an audience in this incarnation, should we say, was at a pub in North Walsham called the Peasants Tavern, which was named after the peasants. They have an open mic night, so it has been performed there as well. I've put it in towards the end of the video because I think it kind of stands alone, so you'll have some ramblings of mine to go through before you get to it, but when you do get there, I hope you'll enjoy it, and I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video, and I wish you a beautiful late autumn tide.
Called the plough and sail represents those 2 times of year for us. It starts off, you'll notice, with the ploughing. The ploughboy holding back the team. They actually start to look like horses, these guys. It's spooky. And some people have to wake up with them in their bed.
This is by way of a little quick update. Last video I showed you my little autumn tree, which is still going strong, but I had put the wrong lights on. I just hadn't really thought. I had these little star lights that had been on and I put them on and they were kind of okay to begin with, but then I found, or I had found anyway, but I hadn't put them on, my little pumpkin lights, little cheery little pumpkin faces, and they're so much brighter and so much more, well, they glow orange as you might expect that they should. So I put them on and that just has transformed it, I think. I think it looks a lot better. Let's have a little pan around the tree and see how it's all looking, because you've got squirrels hiding behind acorns and the big autumn coloured felt leaves as well. I'm really pleased with it. There's nothing new on it this year apart from the squirrels, which aren't new at all. I've had them for years, but there was just in the top drawer, almost out of reach, and so they were out of sight, out of mind, and I'd never thought to put them on. So now I think they'll be a regular fixture. I thought you might like to see it before it all gets dismantled, and I'll start again for Yuletide after Old All Souls Day, which is at the weekend, I think, basically. So yes, after probably at the weekends when I'll take it down actually, and start thinking about how to dress it again for Yuletide or for Advent. In the last video, we had a look in the back garden, so I thought for this one we'll have a quick look in the front garden, because I say quick because it's not, obviously it's a very tiny garden. And you won't be surprised when I say I haven't done anything in here, but actually the idea of this little garden was always to do the minimum at this time of year particularly, and to hold back on cutting things down. All the main plants were put in for wildlife benefit, and so that means things like the seed heads, like on this veronicastrum. The whole idea is you leave them in place over the winter so that they can form, well, some things will form homes or shelter for little insects, and some will be some seed heads are food for example goldfinches. So sometimes it's quite hard to leave things when they look dead. My rule of thumb has been, when things are really flopping over and in the way, I'll cut them down, but if they're standing like this is, it can stay standing. So that's my sort of very, very rough rule of thumb. So let's have a look. Where should we start? I think I'll pop back to the gate and we'll start here. So this has been the ice plant, which is lovely late flowers. As you can see, it's now finished. Those seed or flower heads here, as they die back, will definitely form shelter for small insects or pollinators. So they'll stay unless they flop over. And the hazel tree is turning yellow, so we can see what time of year it is. As the same with the trees in the back garden, they haven't had any hazelnuts. They're quite young trees. There's just two of them. They sort of fill the corners basically, just inside the hedge here. They don't seem to mind being near the holly hedge. The bird bath, I have just refilled that, so it's nice and clear, the water. I really love this bird bath. I don't know, you've probably seen it loads of times, but I also really like this little stand, which is actually a concrete flower pot upside down, which just looks like dragon scales. It goes perfectly with the bird bath itself. I really, really am very fond of that. And particularly when I do remember to clean it out, I think the birds will be fond of it as well. And moving along, all we have got really is the remains of vegetation. There's quite a bit of new growth here on the hardy geraniums, and they are brilliant just for filling up space, covering over, stopping the weeds getting through. They're very pretty little flowers. In fact, there's even, shows we haven't had frosts yet, there's even a couple of little pale pink flowers there at the edge. No other flowers in the garden, I think. There's one rose, which we'll come round to at the end. And this is an example of where the foliage here isn't looking very attractive on the Japanese anemones particularly, but the spent flower heads, again, the centres of those flowers are providing shelter, so they will stay, as long as they're upright, they will stay in place. And because I've done a little bit of clearing, I did about half an hour's worth earlier, I suppose,
you can see the pond. I have in another half-hour session. I shall clear the leaves out of there because it does need that. You can see the hare over there with ivy growing through his ears, which is rather lovely, and the hedge is growing again. Very tall actually. The roses are arching much higher than the trellis. There's this wayfaring tree here. I love the name wayfaring tree, and it's a viburnum, which often means the leaves will turn a lovely colour, and this is no exception. I think it's the same family as the Guelder rose, which has such lovely leaves in the back garden. We've got some shrubs here that flower in the winter. They're not showing any sign of flowering yet, but this is a viburnum tinus, which is a very hardy kind of evergreen. Again, fills up the space nicely, and it must be providing some shelter as well at the same time. And I have cut some of this dogwood back because it was very much covering the front step here. Not that the door's used. In fact, there's just a blank wall behind it, but it is the old front door, as you can see, one of the old front doors, because there were two. The other one is the shop door, and that's the one which is still opened as a door. So I will just show you, because we haven't visited for a long time now, but just to let you know that the sprite's child is still sitting pensively on the step with the fallen leaves around them. And on the other side, yes, the frog. The frog is still here too, and the rather grey weather really shows up those flecks of bright green paint painted by my grandmother, oh, goodness knows how many decades ago, that are still clinging on among the moss. And then on the other side here, I've cut back the dogwood again a little bit. It's a lime green stemmed one, so it's a nice one for the winter. Don't know what it's called. And I think we'll just come back around towards the gate now. All I've done with the leaves, I've just, as you can see, I haven't really cleared them up very much, just a little bit. I've just swept them off the paving slabs, which you can see are really wet. It's not really rained today, but I think it's a time of year where things just stay damp basically all the time, unless there's a very strong wind, which dries things off, but otherwise it's damp, 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 which is good because it means the leaves will rot down and they'll help to make some new compost for the soil. So if I leave everything as much as I can, it will provide shelter. It's really, when the people talk about don't be a tidy gardener, it's not difficult for me because I just don't do that much out here, so it does get left to wildlife. But at the same time, I can also see how it's hard not to sweep things up and not to cut back, but that's what I've tried to do. And this was the result of about half an hour out here, which has just made that little bit of difference, I think, and means you can walk around it and look at what's going on. Oh, I was just going to show you that last rose. Let's look up here. It's just there. It's called Boscabel, and it's a real beauty. On Walsham Heath in 81, with peasants all around, hear ye, cried bold Geoffrey, for we shall stand our ground. For we shall stand our ground. Sir Henry rode from Norwich gates, an army strong he led, archers and knights ready for the fight, to take the rebels' heads, to take the rebels' heads. The sight drew close across the field, preparing for the slaughter. Let your arrows fly, was Sir Henry's cry, for we shall give no quarter. For we shall give no quarter. water. The rebels fought hard, the rebels fought long, but pitchforks can't match swords. And Geoffrey knew that his day was done, and he would fight no more. And he would fight no more. So when you're in North Walsham town and its ancient cross you see, raise your glass up high for the peasants who died, fighting to be free, fighting to be free.